Welcome back. We are here today with Tim and Kelsey, local attorneys, for advice on all things law, and they're going to give us some advice on just hiring a lawyer in general.
That's right. Yeah, usually when you come on, you give us advice about something very specific, but today we're just kind of talking about whether you need to hire a lawyer at all.
It's a good
Is that
question.
right?
Yeah, we get asked it a lot, actually. I mean, I love to talk about the specifics of medical malpractice or construction law, or in Kelsey's case, family law. But we actually get asked quite a bit, do I actually need to hire you?
Yeah.
And the real answer is there's no rule, there's no law that says you have to have an attorney, with a couple of caveats. For example, if you own an LLC or a corporation, you can't represent the LLC or corporation, because an attorney, you have to have an attorney represent somebody else. You can represent yourself,
Okay.
but an LLC is a separate entity.
Right.
Other than that, there's no law against representing yourself. It's just risky.
Okay.
Maybe
so,
not a great idea.
So let's say Mac and I decide we want to start our own LLC, Most Beautiful People in Northwest Arkansas LLC.
Done. Fantastic idea. Somebody write that down.
That name is available. You can pay.
Yes, yeah.
Good.
But we couldn't represent ourselves. That's what you're saying?
That's right. No, if you own an LLC or a corporation, you have to hire a lawyer to represent the LLC or the corporation if they're involved.
Okay.
If the LLC or the corporation is involved in a lawsuit.
Right.
But other than that, you can represent yourself. Normally what I tell people is that the law and being involved in a lawsuit is like 90% procedure and 10% substance, which means you got to jump through all these legal hoops to be able to actually just get into a courtroom and tell your story.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know, it's nice to have an advocate who maybe isn't as nervous and is more familiar going into a courtroom and can help you tell your story, but it's all the stuff that has to be done before you get to court. And then a lot of rules that happen when you're in court that you really need an attorney for.
I see, yeah.
So how do judges kind of react to somebody representing themselves?
So there's actually a rule that if somebody shows up to court and wants to represent themselves, they're treated as a lawyer.
Really?
And I mean, that's my experience with judges, is that sometimes they'll give a little leeway. I don't know if that happens more maybe in family law, but I know in civil litigation, judges typically aren't very forgiving if you show up and want to represent yourself.
Well, Kelsey, what is it like from your perspective?
Yeah, in family law, we have a lot of, it's called pro se litigants, someone who represents themselves. We get a lot of that. And yeah, the judges treat them like themselves. It's kind of a, if you want to represent yourself, that's fine. You have to play the game as though you're an attorney. So from family law perspective, I always say it's so much better to have an attorney because you're so close to that, you know, substance. It's your kids, it's your divorce, it's your whatever. Having a third party who's removed allows a little bit of some distance to maybe tell you what's best when you can't see that.
Right.
Right.
And a big part of what we're doing is to make sure that you get to tell your story. And there's rules of evidence that say how you do it, and rules of procedure that you have to meet before you get into the courtroom. And so having an attorney is a great way to protect your right to actually get in there and tell a judge or a jury what it is you want to tell them.
I feel like a lot of times people are passionate, so they feel like they want to stand up and tell their story. But
Yes.
I know myself, I would be lost as a goose in a courtroom, not know the procedural steps that you're supposed to take in order to get the platform to even tell my story, right? So I feel like for myself, I would hire an attorney simply to get me to that place and position me well.
Where your emotions don't get in the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And emotions are fine. I mean, of course, this is really important stuff, and you're going to be emotional about it. But again, what Kelsey said, having a third party get involved that can advocate for you and deal with the objective stuff and frame it the right way so that the other attorney isn't going to prevent you from coming in and getting to show why you're so emotional, why you're so upset. I mean, that's the point. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if folks want to reach out to you and ask you any questions, how can they do that?
So they can reach us at 479-435-9051 or check us out on our website, mgwfirm.com.
Yeah. Can you talk about just real quick, what you specify in? Because you're family
And
law.
family law, yeah.
And Tim, what do you specify in?
I do a lot of civil litigation, which means contracts and construction. I also do a lot of personal injury, medical malpractice.
Yeah, okay. So these are your two to reach out for those things. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks as
Yeah.
always
Thanks,
for
guys.
MGW Law Partners for sponsoring. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Great legal advice.